Here are some tips on the process you may have to go through if you decide to change the upholstery on your dinette cushions and your porthole bungs. My name's Marianne and I am part-time boater. Peter decided to change the upholstery on his cushions in the dinette. He's been thinking about it for quite some time, and by coincidence he mentioned it to a new friend of ours, Maffy. Maffy suggested an upholsterer called Gilly, who works out of Lower Heyford Wharf. Peter made contact with Gilly and went to see her. Unfortunately, I wasn't with him when he did this. I say unfortunately because it's just the sort of thing I would really have enjoyed doing, and I missed out on that. Why did Peter want to change the dinette cushion covers? We have been, over the last 3 years, adding colour into the boat. The cushions were a shade of yellow, and we have been introducing a fair bit of red onto the boat. So then the process began of measuring the cushions and deciding on which fabric went where. And Peter did all of this, and I wasn't really involved, except that Peter would contact me with photographs of the samples and the ideas that he had talked through with Gilly. And so the process was begun. And I kept saying to him, well, are you intending to get the bungs changed as well? And he said, oh, I forgot to mention it. And this happens on several occasions, to the extent that the fabric was ordered for the cushions, measurements taken, etc. And the process began. Gilly was making up the cushion covers. Peter did eventually mention the bungs, and there would have been some fabric left over. However, when the cushions were finally made up, there was enough fabric there to make additional cushions like we had on the boat previously, which hadn't been factored in. And so when it came time to doing the bungs, once Peter had mentioned them, there wasn't actually enough fabric there. However, Gilly did suggest a gold fabric that looked very nice and was in keeping with the boat, so Peter agreed to it. But when we got the cushions back and we fitted them into place, we realised that it was very much a colour that blended into the wood of the boat, not exactly the pop of colour that we were hoping for. So my task when I discovered this was to think, well, how can we change up these cushions? Because they're already made. How can we change them up? So I asked Peter to go back to Gilly before he left Lower Heyford and get all the offcuts and fabric that she had used or that had been left over and bring them back to the boat, and I would see what I could do. I'm not a seamstress, I'm not an upholsterer, but I do enjoy sewing, and hand sewing is something I can do. So I'm now back on the boat, and the boat is in Banbury. We're going to be cruising for the next few weeks, and this is going to be an ideal opportunity for me to practice my hand sewing on the cushions, the bungs, sorry. The cushion covers for the dinette furniture are really lovely. It adds that pop of colour that I was mentioning, but the colour changes with the light. So the photographs Peter sent me looked as if the cushions were pink, and pink is not one of my favourite colours. In fact, I would go as far as to say I dislike pink intensely. I'm fine with it on other people, I'm fine with it on flowers and nature, but for me to have to live with pink in an environment would be quite difficult. I would do it, of course, but it would be difficult. So when I came to the boat and I actually saw the cushions, I thought, thank goodness for that. They are red and they look lovely. So Peter brought the offcuts to the boat. I had a look through them, and I had bought some interfacing and some cord because I had the idea of putting red cord around the outside of the porthole cover on the seam. And So that's what I'm in the process of doing. I have completed 2 of them, and I'm just waiting to see whether or not that is enough colour, or whether I should actually be cutting out some shapes of the leaves from the Dinette cushion fabric and doing an applique onto the cushions. Sorry, the bungs. I have done the cord, and we're going to live with that for a bit and see whether or not it's enough. And if it isn't, I've got the interface and I've got the time to actually apply these to the bungs. A good way of doing it, if you know someone who has used an upholsterer before, it's best to try and use the same upholsterer if you know that their results are good. Now, choosing the fabric, we had a colour scheme in mind and it was red. Gilly happened to have some red fabric from a previous customer and they were perfect for us. The pattern was good, the combination was good. So Peter sent me a photograph and I really liked them, so he went with that. But if you've got an idea of a colour scheme that you would like to use, mention that to your upholsterer, because she would then be able to show you sample booklets with the fabrics in them of varying colours that you might like to use. And then from that you can choose your fabric according to style, pattern, colour, budget, etc. For us it was made easy because Gilly already had these fabrics and had used them before, and that's what we went with. So that decision was really very quick for us. When you're choosing the foam for your Dinette cushions, that is if you're not using your existing ones, a couple of things to be aware of. There is the density of the foam and also the depth of it. Those factors play into what kind of cushions you will end up with. So you might want a less firm cushion with a thicker dimension, and so you need to be aware of these characteristics and choose accordingly, and that will all have a bearing on your cost and also the depth of cushion that you are going to be sitting on. Make sure that you and the upholsterer are very clear on what you want so that you end up with the right sort of cushions for you. I would suggest you get these things in writing as well, so that you both have a copy to refer to during your conversations, because chances are you're going to be on the end of the phone when you're talking to your upholsterer about many things. Confirm time frames as well. You may have constraints about when you're going to be moving the boat and you want your job done within a certain time frame. Your upholsterer may or may not be able to commit to that, so just get those time frames confirmed so that you know when you can order the things and when you can collect. The other thing is, mention all the items that you want upholstered at the very beginning. In our case, Peter forgot to mention the bungs when he ordered the seat cushions to be made up. So Gilly ordered the fabric for the seat cushions, and there was a certain amount left over that would have done the bungs, except that Peter also asked for some additional cushion covers to be made to just make us sit a little bit higher at the dinette, because I'm only a diddy person and I like to sit a bit higher when I'm at the table for working and eating. So when it came to making the bung covers, there wasn't enough fabric left. So Gilly made it up in a very nice gold fabric, which blends really well with the walls, but that's not quite what we wanted. So I'm going through the process now with some cord of just altering them to more to our taste, basically. So that's what I'm saying. Just make sure that you have all your details down in writing first, so that you've got a checklist of things that you can actually tick off, and your upholsterer will know exactly what you want. Then the right amount of fabric can be ordered. Now in this photograph you can see the old cushions for the dinette, and here are our new ones. a little bit more pizzazz, I think, in the new ones, that is. Our bung sizes are 47 centimetres in diameter and 147.58 centimetres circumference. So when I bought the interfacing and the cord, I had that in my mind, and I bought sufficient of each to do the job. I actually ended up purchasing 8 meters of cord, and that has turned out to be just the right amount. And here are the bung covers, the bung cushions. And this one is just the plain gold. It's a lovely fabric, and we've got toweling on the other side as well. But it blends very much into the walls. So here is the cord that I have brought with me to the boat. And the process that I went through to actually achieve going round the bungs is just dividing the cord into 4 for the 4 bungs, and then tying knots in each one, and then measuring the halfway point of the cushion, pinning it into place, and then finally sewing it. And I tied a reef knot, I think it's a reef knot anyway, at the top of the cushion, so we've got a couple of nice tassels hanging down. And this is how we're going to be living with it, just to see whether or not we actually need to do anything else. I've got the interfacing if I need to do some applique work onto the cushions, and I'll keep you posted as to whether or not that is what I'm going to be doing, or whether we're just happy with the red tassels to add that little pop of colour on the bungs. So I hope that you have found this video interesting. I have certainly enjoyed doing the sewing of the cords. I will let you know in a future video whether we've gone down the applique route or not, but I hope this has given you some ideas as to designing your ideal space without having to change your entire boat to get it. This is designing your ideal boat life and making your area to your taste, just like Peter has done on Narrowboat Bandonian. I do hope that you have found this video useful and interesting and also enjoyable. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share. So until next week and next week's video, bye!